The grand hall of the Jorthal Consortium glistened with polished obsidian and silver inlays, its opulence a reflection of their dominance across the galaxy. Delegates from dozens of allied species filled the chamber, their voices a low murmur as they discussed the evening's agenda. At the center of the room stood a table laden with bottles of wine, each a crystalline masterpiece containing an amber liquid that shimmered like molten gold. The room buzzed with anticipation, for this was not merely a diplomatic gathering. It was a test. For centuries, the Jorthal Consortium had maintained control over the galaxy's political and economic systems. Their influence was unshakable, their methods subtle yet ruthless. To those who lived under their rule, their strength seemed insurmountable. And now, a new species had joined the galactic stage, humanity. Humans were a curiosity to the Jorthal. Their rapid advancement from primitive tribes to spacefaring civilizations was unlike anything the Consortium had seen before. They were resourceful, adaptable, and strangely resilient. But there was an arrogance in their eyes, a belief that they could stand as equals among species that had ruled the stars for millennia. Tonight, the Jorthal intended to correct that misconception. Ambassador Xyrath watched from his seat, his multi-limbed form lounging in what appeared to be casual ease. He was one of the consortium's most seasoned diplomats, his reputation built on the careful dismantling of countless upstart civilizations. He had orchestrated this evening's event with a singular purpose: to demonstrate humanity's inferiority. The wine was the key. It was a tradition among the Jorthal and their allies to share their finest vintages at diplomatic summits. The gesture was symbolic of trust and cooperation, but it also served as a veiled test. The wines were laced with a compound that tested the tolerance of each species. For the Jorthal, it was a game, a way to measure a civilization's fortitude while humiliating those who faltered. Most species succumbed to the effects within minutes, their inebriated states reducing them to incoherence or worse. The humans, however, seemed unaware of this tradition. Their ambassador, a middle-aged man named Victor Hayes, stood near the table of wine, chatting amicably with delegates from other species. His dark suit was impeccably tailored, his demeanor relaxed but alert. Beside him stood two other humans, one a scientist named Dr. Elena Morozov and the other a military officer, Colonel James Forrester. The three of them represented the United Earth Alliance, humanity's first attempt at a unified front in galactic politics. Xyrath studied them with interest. They appeared unremarkable, their bodies fragile compared to the armored carapaces of the Zarnak or the scaled hides of the Valak. Yet there was something in their movements, a quiet confidence that unsettled him. He dismissed the thought. The wine would reveal their true nature soon enough. As the ceremony began, Xyrath rose from his seat and addressed the assembly. His voice carried the melodic tones of the Jorthal, soothing yet commanding. Honored delegates, tonight we celebrate the arrival of a new species among us. Humanity has shown great promise in their endeavors, and we welcome them into our shared future. As is tradition, we shall share the fruits of our labors, a toast to unity and cooperation. The delegates applauded politely as attendants moved to distribute glasses of the golden wine. Xyrath noted the humans' expressions as they received their glasses. Victor's faint smile, Elena's analytical gaze, James's stoic calm. They showed no signs of suspicion, which pleased Xyrath. The compound in the wine was odorless and tasteless, its effects subtle but undeniable. When every delegate held a glass, Xyrath raised his own. To unity, he declared, his voice resonating with conviction. May our bonds grow stronger with each passing year. To unity, the assembly echoed. Xyrath watched with satisfaction as the humans lifted their glasses and took their first sips. The room fell into a hushed anticipation, delegates discreetly observing the newcomers for signs of weakness. The effects typically began with a slight flush of the skin, followed by dizziness, disorientation, and eventually unconsciousness. To Xyrath's surprise, the humans showed none of these symptoms. Victor took another sip, his expression thoughtful. Interesting flavor, he remarked to Elena. Citrusy with a hint of something metallic? Elena nodded, her scientist's mind already analyzing the taste. There's a compound in here, something synthetic. Not unpleasant but definitely noticeable. James drained half his glass in one gulp, his face unreadable. Tastes like a weaker version of what we used to drink on deployment, he said. I've had stronger stuff in backwater colonies. Xyrath felt a flicker of unease. This was not the reaction he had expected. Most species would be showing signs of intoxication by now, their faculties dulled and their dignity compromised. Yet the humans seemed unaffected, their conversation continuing as if nothing were amiss. Around the room, other delegates began to falter. A Valak representative slumped in her seat, her speech slurred as she attempted to engage her companions. A Zarnak ambassador stumbled to the side, his mandibles clicking erratically. Even some of Zyratha's own colleagues showed signs of the compound's effects, their usually graceful movements becoming sluggish. And yet the humans remained steady. Victor set his glass down and turned to Zyrath, his expression polite but direct. "Ambassador, this wine is quite remarkable. May I ask what inspired its creation?" Zyrath forced a smile, his mind racing. "It is a blend of rare fruits and herbs native to our homeworld, crafted to honor occasions such as this." Victor nodded thoughtfully. "Fascinating. Dr. Morozov here has a background in biochemistry. I'm sure she'd be interested in learning more about the composition." Elena raised her glass with a wry smile. "It's certainly unique. I'd love to know more about the molecular structure. It's always interesting to see how different species approach fermentation." The undercurrent in their words was clear. They knew. Zyrath felt a surge of panic, though he hid it well. How could they have detected the compound? It was engineered to be undetectable by any known species. And even if they had identified it, how were they unaffected by its effects? As the evening progressed, it became clear that the humans were not only unaffected, they were thriving. Victor moved effortlessly through the room, engaging delegates in conversation and building alliances with an ease that bordered on unsettling. Elena's sharp intellect and genuine curiosity won over even the most skeptical representatives. And James, though quieter, carried himself with a presence that commanded respect. By the end of the night, it was the humans who stood tall while others faltered. Zyrath watched in dismay as his carefully orchestrated plan crumbled before his eyes. The humans had not only passed the test, they had turned it into an opportunity to showcase their strength. As the delegates departed, Victor approached Zyrath one last time. "Ambassador, thank you for hosting such a memorable evening. We look forward to working with the consortium in the future." His words were polite, but his eyes carried a message that Zyrath could not ignore. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They had survived the consortium's test and emerged stronger for it. And in that moment, Zyrath realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The wine test was supposed to be a turning point, a humiliation humanity would not recover from. Instead, the humans had not only defied expectations but turned the event into an impressive showcase of resilience. The following morning, the Jorthal Consortium's grand chambers buzzed with activity. Holofeeds replayed the previous night's events, snippets of Victor Hayes and his team mingling confidently among swaying, intoxicated delegates. The image of Dr. Elena Morozov laughing with a dazed Valak ambassador had already gone viral across the galactic networks, accompanied by the caption, "Humanity, steady as the stars." Zyrath watched the news feeds from his private office, his mandibles clicking with irritation. For the first time in his career he had failed. The humans were supposed to stumble, to expose their inadequacies and vulnerabilities. Instead, they had made the consortium's elites look foolish. The other delegates, those who had passed out or humiliated themselves, would not forget the embarrassment. Worse still, they would not forget that the humans had stood tall. A chime interrupted his thoughts, signaling an incoming call. He waved a limb toward the console, and the holographic form of Thaurin, another senior Jorthal official, materialized before him. Thaurin's azure skin shimmered with bioluminescent frustration. "Zyrath, this incident cannot go unanswered. The humans' resilience will embolden other species to challenge our authority." Zyrath inclined his head. "I am well aware, Thaurin. But we underestimated them. They are not like the others we've dealt with." Thaurin's gaze narrowed. "No species is immune to pressure. Humanity has proven resourceful, but resourcefulness can be a weakness. We simply need a new strategy. Something they cannot prepare for." Before Zyrath could respond, another notification appeared on his console, a message marked as urgent from the consortium's intelligence division. He gestured again, opening the file. His secondary eyes scanned the data quickly, his expression darkening with every line. The file contained a detailed analysis of humanity's physiological and psychological profiles, compiled from covert surveillance and intercepted communications. It highlighted their adaptability, their strange ability to thrive in hostile conditions and, most troubling, their peculiar relationship with chemical substances. "Did you know," Zyrath said slowly, "that humans have a history of consuming toxic substances for recreation? Alcohol, caffeine, capsaicin. Even ethanol, a substance that would corrode the insides of most species, is considered a staple of their diet." Thaurin blinked in disbelief. You're suggesting they enjoy poison? Not enjoy, Xyrath corrected. But they've built a tolerance. Their history is riddled with stories of survival in the face of environmental hazards that would wipe out any other species. It's not resilience, it's a near-insane capacity to adapt to adversity. Thauron frowned, his bioluminescence dimming. Then the wine was never going to affect them. Exactly. Xyrath leaned back, his limbs folding across his chest. They likely recognized the compound immediately. But instead of revealing it, they used the opportunity to prove their strength. Thauron's expression darkened. We cannot let this stand. Humanity's defiance will spread across the galactic networks, inspiring others to question our authority. We must act decisively. Xyrath nodded. Agreed. But brute force will not work. Humanity's adaptability makes them unpredictable. We need to strike at their weaknesses, not their strengths. The two spent hours devising a plan, analyzing every scrap of intelligence the consortium had on humanity. They studied their alliances, their resource networks, their cultural values. And eventually they found a vulnerability, something so deeply ingrained in humanity's psyche that it could be exploited with devastating effect. By the end of the day they had a plan. It was subtle, insidious, and designed to fracture humanity from within. Xyrath felt a renewed sense of confidence as he finalized the details. The humans had outmaneuvered him once, but they would not do so again. The next diplomatic event was scheduled to take place on the neutral world of Zarthian, a location chosen for its breathtaking landscapes and uninhabited status. Delegates from across the galaxy would attend, and the consortium planned to unveil a new trade agreement that would solidify their dominance. Humanity, as newcomers, had been invited as a gesture of goodwill. This time, Xyrath would ensure they were unprepared. When the humans arrived on Zarthian, they were greeted with the kind of calculated warmth that masked underlying hostility. Victor Hayes and his team, however, were unfazed. They had seen the hollow feeds, felt the undercurrent of tension in every message from the consortium, and knew they were walking into a trap. What do you think they'll try this time? Elena asked as their shuttle descended into Zarthian's atmosphere, its twin suns casting long shadows over jagged cliffs and crystalline seas. Victor smirked. Whatever it is, they'll think they've outsmarted us. That's their first mistake. James leaned back in his seat, his expression unreadable. Their second mistake will be assuming we'll play along. As they disembarked, they were met by Xyrath himself. The ambassador's usual air of smug superiority was gone, replaced by a carefully neutral demeanor. Ambassador Hayes, Xyrath said smoothly, extending a limb in greeting. Welcome to Zarthian. We trust your journey was uneventful. Uneventful and pleasant, Victor replied, shaking the limb with practiced ease. Thank you for hosting us again, Ambassador. We're looking forward to strengthening our relationship with the consortium. The diplomatic dance began, each side exchanging pleasantries while maneuvering for advantage. But beneath the surface, the humans were already analyzing every detail, from the composition of the air to the subtle changes in Xyrath's body language. The evening's event was a formal banquet, held in a vast open-air pavilion overlooking Zarthian's crystalline ocean. The humans were seated at a table near the center, surrounded by delegates from other species. As the meal progressed, they noticed subtle signs of unease among their neighbors, furtive glances, whispered conversations, and an almost palpable tension in the air. And then the main course was served. The dishes were exquisite, crafted from the rarest ingredients in the galaxy. But as Victor took his first bite, he felt the faintest tingle on his tongue, a sensation he recognized immediately. Elena leaned in, her voice low. Capsaicin. And something else. Maybe a derivative of scopolamine? James set his fork down, his gaze scanning the room. They've spiked the food. Low doses, but it's there. Victor nodded, his expression calm. Let's see how they react when it doesn't work. To the consortium's growing dismay, the humans continued to eat, their expressions unchanging. Meanwhile, delegates from other species began to falter, their bodies reacting to the compounds designed to target each species' unique biology. The humans, immune to both the substances and the consortium's schemes, once again became the focus of the evening. As the night wore on, it became clear to everyone in the room that humanity was not to be underestimated. And for Xyrath, watching from the shadows, it was a bitter pill to swallow. The humans were more than resilient. They were unstoppable. The aftermath of the banquet rippled through the galactic community like a shockwave. Within hours, the incident was trending across every major information network. Video clips of humanity's calm composure during the meal were juxtaposed with the disoriented and, in some cases, unconscious delegates from other species. The narrative was clear: humanity had proven once again that they were a force to be reckoned with. In their quarters aboard the starliner Erebus, Victor Hayes and his team watched the fallout unfold. Elena paced the room, her movements restless but controlled. James leaned back in his chair, arms crossed as he scanned a live news feed projected onto the wall. Victor stood by the window, staring out at the swirling nebulae, his reflection ghosted against the glass. "They're scrambling," Elena said, her voice tinged with satisfaction. "The consortium is trying to spin this as a cultural misunderstanding, but no one's buying it." "Of course they're not," James replied. "They tried to poison half the delegates at a diplomatic event. That's not exactly subtle." Victor turned away from the window, his expression unreadable. "It's not just about the banquet. This was a test, a way to measure us, to see how far they could push without breaking us. And we didn't just survive. We turned their trap against them." James nodded. "But they won't stop here. They can't. The more they try and fail, the more desperate they'll get." Victor crossed his arms, his gaze sharp. "Which makes them dangerous. Desperation breeds recklessness. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Elena stopped pacing, her eyes narrowing as an alert flashed across the holo display. She tapped a command, and a message from Earth's diplomatic corps appeared. It was brief but clear. The Jorthal Consortium had called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Humanity's presence was formally requested. James raised an eyebrow. "That's a bold move. They're either trying to save face or setting us up for something bigger." Victor studied the message for a moment before replying. "Either way we're going. The only way to deal with this is head-on." The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of engineering and artistry, a vast circular space with tiered seating for representatives from every member species. Holo projections filled the air, displaying data, maps and visual aids for the debates. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform where speakers presented their cases. When the humans arrived, the room fell into a tense silence. Victor, Elena and James stepped onto the platform, their movements calm and deliberate. Xyrath was already there, flanked by a delegation of Jorthal officials. His mandibles clicked softly as he regarded the humans, his expression carefully neutral. "Ambassador Hayes," Xyrath began, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "Thank you for attending this session on such short notice. The consortium has called this meeting to address recent events that have raised questions about humanity's role in our community." Victor inclined his head. "We're here to answer any questions the council may have." Xyrath gestured toward the tiered seating, where dozens of alien representatives watched with keen interest. "The consortium believes that humanity's unique characteristics warrant further examination. Your resilience, while impressive, has caused disruptions. We must consider the implications for our shared future." Victor's expression remained composed. "You mean the implications of humanity surviving attempts to undermine us?" A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Xyrath's mandibles twitched, but he quickly recovered. "No one here seeks to undermine humanity, Ambassador. Our actions have always been guided by the principles of unity and cooperation." Elena stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Unity and cooperation don't involve poisoning your allies at a diplomatic event." The murmurs grew louder, and Xyrath's composure began to crack. "That incident was an unfortunate misunderstanding," he said, his voice strained. "The compounds in question were never intended to harm." James folded his arms. "So they were just supposed to incapacitate us? Forgive me if I don't see the distinction." The tension in the room was palpable. Xyrath opened his mandibles to reply, but another voice cut through the noise, a deep, resonant tone that belonged to the council's presiding officer, an elder of the Rick species. "Enough," the presiding officer said, his voice silencing the chamber. "This council exists to foster understanding and resolve conflicts. Ambassador Xyrath, you claim that the consortium's actions were misunderstood. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise. Humanity has been tested repeatedly, and each time they have proven their strength. Why then does the consortium persist in these provocations?" Xyrath hesitated, his gaze shifting toward his delegation. Finally he said, "Because humanity is an anomaly. Their adaptability, their resilience, it is unprecedented. They challenge the natural order of our galaxy." Victor stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "The natural order isn't something to be preserved at the expense of progress. Humanity doesn't seek to dominate or disrupt. We seek to contribute, to share what makes us unique. If that's a challenge to the status quo, then perhaps the status quo needs to change." The chamber erupted into debate, representatives arguing both for and against humanity's place in the galactic community. Victor, Elena, and James stood their ground, answering questions and countering accusations with unwavering resolve. After hours of heated discussion, the session finally adjourned. As the humans left the chamber, they were met with mixed reactions. Some representatives offered nods of respect, while others avoided their gaze. Xyrath, however, lingered near the exit, his mandibles clicking softly as the humans approached. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low. "Humanity's defiance will have consequences." Victor met his gaze, unflinching. "We're not afraid of consequences. And we're not going anywhere." As the humans walked away, Xyrath watched them with a growing sense of unease. The consortium's attempts to undermine humanity had only made them stronger. And for the first time he began to wonder if they had underestimated not just humanity's resilience, but their resolve. Back aboard the Erebus, Victor and his team prepared for what they knew would be an uphill battle. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but humanity had faced worse. Together they would navigate the storm, proving time and again that they belonged among the stars. The Erebus sailed silently through the vast expanse of space, its crew immersed in preparation for the inevitable fallout of the council session. In the quiet confines of the command center, Victor, Elena, and James sat in deep contemplation, the weight of the galaxy's gaze heavy on their shoulders. The galaxy's doubts about humanity were no longer a matter of mere survival. They had become a crucible that would define their species' destiny. Elena broke the silence, her voice steady but tinged with resolve. "We've made our point, but Xyrath is right about one thing. This isn't over. The consortium won't stop until they've either broken us or driven us out." James leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. "And we've shown them that breaking us isn't an option. That just leaves escalation." Victor nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy that hovered above the table. The consortium-controlled territories glowed a deep red, their reach vast but not impenetrable. "We need allies. The Council isn't united in their distrust of us, and there are those who see the consortium for what it is, an empire desperate to maintain control." Elena tapped a command into her console, bringing up a list of independent species and factions. The Sorthans have been vocal about their distrust of the consortium. They've suffered under their trade policies for decades. And the Neolen Collective might be open to discussions. They value strength, and we've proven we have that in spades. James raised an eyebrow. "So we build a coalition? A loose alliance of the disillusioned and the downtrodden?" Victor's lips curled into a faint smile. "It's worked before. Humanity has always thrived when we've found common ground with others. And right now, the consortium's actions have provided plenty of that." The first stop was Sorthan Prime, a verdant world teeming with life. The Sorthans were a reptilian species known for their pragmatism and keen sense of justice. Their capital city, built into the cliffs overlooking a roaring ocean, was as awe-inspiring as it was imposing. Victor, Elena, and James were greeted by Chancellor Thrixus, a tall, imposing figure with scales that shimmered in the sunlight. Thrixus wasted no time with pleasantries. "Humans," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You've stirred quite the storm in the council." Victor inclined his head. "We didn't stir the storm, Chancellor. We've merely weathered it." Thrixus let out a dry chuckle. "A fair point. The consortium has overstepped, and many of us have grown weary of their overreach. But allying with humanity is a risk. You are newcomers, untested in the grand scale of galactic politics." Elena stepped forward, her voice firm. "We may be new, but we're not untested. Humanity has faced extinction more times than we care to count, and each time we've emerged stronger. We don't just survive, we adapt, we endure, and we grow. The consortium fears us because they know we can't be controlled." Thrixus studied her for a moment before nodding slowly. "Perhaps there is merit in your words. We will consider your proposal." Next came the Neolen Collective, a species of cephalopod-like beings whose society revolved around honor and strength. Their capital, a sprawling underwater city illuminated by bioluminescent flora, was a stark contrast to the rugged cliffs of Sorthan Prime. The Neolen Prime Chancellor, a massive figure with undulating tentacles and a commanding presence, greeted the humans with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Humans," he said, his voice resonating through the water-filled chamber. "You have proven your resilience, but strength alone does not earn trust. What do you seek from us?" Victor met his gaze, unflinching. "We seek partnership. The consortium has grown too powerful, and their actions threaten the balance of the galaxy. Humanity doesn't want to dominate, we want to coexist. But we can't do it alone. The Chancellor's tentacles shifted thoughtfully. You speak of coexistence, yet your actions in the Council show defiance. Do you truly seek peace, or merely to assert your place? James stepped forward, his tone even. Defiance and peace aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes peace requires standing up to those who abuse their power. Humanity won't bow to the Consortium, but we also won't seek war. We're here because we believe there's a better way, one that benefits all of us. The Chancellor regarded them for a long moment before nodding. Your words carry weight. We will discuss your proposal among our council. As the Erebus departed Neolen space, the humans received word that both the Sorthans and the Neolen Collective had agreed to tentative alliances. It was a small victory but a significant one. The tide was beginning to turn. Back in Consortium space, Xyrath seethed as he watched the news reports. The humans' diplomatic efforts were gaining traction, and the Consortium's grip on the galaxy was starting to slip. Desperation gnawed at him, and he called an emergency meeting with his inner circle. They're building alliances, Xyrath said, his mandibles clicking furiously. If we don't act now, humanity will become a threat we can't contain. One of his advisors, a wiry creature with sharp eyes, spoke up. We could initiate a military strike, make an example of their allies. Xyrath hesitated. Such an action would provoke open conflict, but the Consortium was running out of options. Prepare the fleets, he said finally. If humanity wants to challenge the natural order, then we will remind them of their place. Victor and his team knew the Consortium wouldn't take their alliances lightly. When the Sorthan Prime Minister sent an urgent message warning of incoming fleets, the humans mobilized. The Erebus joined a combined force of Sorthan and Neolen ships, their newly forged alliance tested in the fires of battle. The battle was fierce, the void alight with the glow of energy weapons and the shrapnel of destroyed ships. Humanity's tactics, honed through centuries of conflict on Earth, proved invaluable. The Consortium's forces were larger, but the combined ingenuity and determination of the Alliance turned the tide. Victor's voice rang out across the comms as the battle reached its climax. This isn't just about humanity. This is about standing up to tyranny. Show them what unity can achieve. As the last Consortium ship retreated, a cheer erupted across the Allied fleets. Humanity had not only survived, they had inspired others to fight for their freedom. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council convened once more. This time, humanity stood not as an isolated newcomer but as the leader of a growing movement. Victor addressed the chamber with unwavering confidence. The galaxy is vast and diverse, he said. We are stronger when we embrace that diversity, when we stand together against those who would divide us. Humanity is here to stay, and we will continue to fight for a future where all species can thrive. The chamber erupted into applause, the tide of sentiment shifting firmly in humanity's favor. The Consortium's influence had been dealt a critical blow, and a new era of cooperation and resistance to tyranny began. As the humans left the chamber, Victor turned to Elena and James, a rare smile on his face. This is just the beginning? Elena nodded, her eyes bright with determination. And we're ready for whatever comes next. James grinned. Let them come. Humanity doesn't back down.